Let me tell you what really happened. It was right after my husband's funeral. The house was still full of people in black, the flowers were starting to wilt, and his casket hadn't even left the living room. That's when my own son looked me in the eye and said, "This isn't your home anymore. Get out." Then he slapped me. Hard. I stood there, stunned. The slap hurt, sure, but not nearly as much as those words. I never thought my son, my own child, would ever raise a hand to me, let alone speak to me like that. But he did. And right there, not 5 feet from his father's body, I felt a kind of heartbreak I didn't know existed. His wife stood behind him, arms crossed, smirking just a little. She'd always acted like the house belonged to her, like I was just a visitor. Never mind that I raised my son in that house, that I scrubbed those floors, cooked every meal in that kitchen, and prayed by that window when times were hard. I was the one who worked 2 jobs when his dad lost his. I was the one who stayed up all night when he had a fever. I gave everything I had for that boy, and now he was throwing me out like I was nothing, but I didn't cry. I couldn't. I was in too much shock for tears. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye. He couldn't even hold the stare. But I did. Because in that moment, I wasn't just a grieving widow or a mother being tossed aside. I was something stronger, something he didn't expect. I didn't say a word. Just walked over to my suitcase, still packed from the hospital where my husband had spent his last week. I dragged it to the door. My footsteps echoed on the wooden floor we'd installed together 37 years ago. I didn't take much. I left behind my photo albums, my favorite quilt, even the little angel statue my mom gave me. But I did take one thing with me: the mortgage. The cold outside slapped me too, but somehow it felt gentler than my son's hand. Snow had started to fall, soft and slow. It clung to my black coat. I let it. I walked past the car my husband and I paid off, past the rose bushes we planted on our 20th anniversary, past the wind chimes that used to dance when my son came home from school. No one followed me. No one stopped me. Not even him. At the corner, I took out my phone and called a cab. While I waited, I sat on a bench outside a gas station. The teenage clerk inside came out and asked, "Ma'am, are you okay?" He didn't recognize me, but I remembered him. I once baked him cookies for Christmas when he was just a kid. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just waiting for a ride." Offered to let me wait inside, where it was warm. I nodded. He didn't ask any more questions. He didn't stare at the bruise forming on my cheek. Later, in the motel room, everything smelled like bleach and sadness. But the heater worked. The bed was clean. The woman at the front desk didn't ask anything, just offered me tea and a blanket. I said no and stared at the ceiling for hours. I kept hearing those words. "This isn't your home anymore." Over and over again. But here's the thing, they didn't know everything. What they didn't realize was that my name was still on the mortgage. My husband made sure of that before he passed. In one of our last conversations, he had told me, "If I go first, don't say anything about the documents. Not unless Andrew ever hurts you." And he did hurt me. So the next morning, I made a call, not to my son, but to the bank. I gave them my name, my ID, the account number. They checked everything and said, "Yes, ma'am, you're listed as a co-owner and co-borrower. You have the right to stop the payments." So I did. And by noon, my son would learn something very important. The locks might still work, but the bank doesn't. Not without me. But by the end of that week, he'd get a real shock, one that would come straight from the bank, and I wouldn't be there to see it. I'd already be long gone, not hiding, just quiet. I'd spent my whole life being quiet. Funny thing is, now it was my silence that would say the most. That house didn't fall from the sky. It wasn't some lucky gift that landed in our laps. We built it, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. Every inch of it was made from sacrifice. I still remember the winter of 1987. The snow was falling so heavy that year, the heating bills nearly crushed us. That's when we signed the mortgage papers for the first time. My hands were shaking so badly I smudged the ink. I made sure my name was on everything, not because I didn't trust my husband, but because at the time, his credit was a mess. His auto repair shop had just failed, and the banks kept slamming their doors in his face. But I had a steady job. I worked at the local clinic as a medical clerk. Clean credit, reliable income. My name got us the loan. My name opened that door. So my name went on the deed too. We didn't talk about it much. He was proud, but quiet about it. Still, I'll never forget planting those first hydrangeas out front. He looked at me and whispered, "We built this together, you and me." And we did. We gave up dinners out, skipped holiday gifts, patched holes in the roof with duct tape when we had to, but we never missed a payment. The bank statements always came in both our names. That mailbox knew the truth. We were equals. Then, in 2012, everything changed. My husband got sick. The man who used to lift me over puddles now struggled just to hold a coffee mug. The bills piled up. Insurance didn't cover half of it. He had to stop working, and Social Security barely made a dent. So I picked up the slack. I switched to night shifts, took on weekend house cleaning jobs. I stretched 2 bags of groceries into a week's worth of meals. I wore gloves to hide the cracks in my hands. But I didn't complain. Not once. Not to him. Not to Andrew. Andrew had just started his own family back then. He was trying to build his life too. I didn't want to drag him down with ours. So when he asked why I looked tired all the time, I just smiled and blamed it on age. He never pressed. And maybe that was my mistake. Maybe if I'd let him see the truth, he would have respected me more. Or maybe not. Maybe nothing would have changed. But I chose to protect him. That's what mothers do. Now, years later, he kicked me out of the very house I helped build. Not just kicked me out, but acted like I had never been part of it. Like I was a shadow they were finally sweeping away. His wife never treated me like family. She changed the curtains, repainted the walls, remodeled the kitchen, all without ever asking. She called it her house. I didn't argue. I didn't want fights. I just wanted peace in my final years. I thought that if I gave them space, they'd give me respect, but instead, they gave me rules. I'll never forget the evening. I was dusting the bookshelf, my bookshelf with my books, and she walked by and said, "You should really ask before touching things. We're trying to keep the aesthetic consistent." I didn't respond. I just went to my room and shut the door. I cried. Quietly. Not because of what she said, but because I finally saw it all so clearly. They were pushing me out, rewriting the story. And Andrew was letting them. He started calling it their house. Stopped asking what I thought. Treated me like I was just a guest. Tolerated, not loved. I saw it all, and I said nothing. No big speeches, no waving around papers. But I never threw anything away. Every mortgage paper, every payment receipt, every copy of the deed, I kept them. Neatly organized in a manila folder at the bottom of my drawer. When my husband died, I took that folder straight to the bank. I placed it in a safe deposit box, along with a backup will and a letter my husband wrote me before he passed. Just in case, he had said. They thought I had nothing, that they'd finally taken everything. But what they didn't know is I'd protected Andrew all his life. And I'd protected myself too. So when they slammed that door in my face, thinking they had the final say, they didn't realize what they were losing. Because that house wasn't just made of wood and nails. It was made of names, and mine was still on it. One of the names on that house was still mine, and it always had been. Just a week before he passed, my husband called me into the bedroom while Andrew and his wife had gone out to get groceries. He looked so small lying there in bed, his flannel pajama top hanging loose over a frame that used to be so strong. I could see his bones through the fabric, but his eyes were sharp. Sharper than they'd been in weeks. "Come sit," he said, patting the side of the mattress. I sat down beside him, gently. He reached into the nightstand and pulled out a small brown envelope. "Don't open it now," he said, placing it in my hands. "And don't tell Andrew about it. Not unless—" He stopped to cough, the sound rattling through his chest. "Not unless what?" I asked quietly, already feeling that knot of worry in my stomach. He looked at me for a long moment, like he was trying to burn the words into my heart. "Not unless he hurts you." I blinked. "Hurts me? What do you mean?" He let out a slow breath. "I've seen how he talks to you sometimes, how she treats you, and he just lets her." I swallowed hard. I didn't want to talk about that. Not now. Not when he was already so weak. "You're overthinking it," I whispered. "He's just stressed." But my husband shook his head slowly. "No. You've always been too generous with your forgiveness. That's why I had the papers drafted. The lawyer added something extra, just in case. Because if I go first and they turn on you, I want you protected." I held the envelope tighter. "What's inside?" I asked. "A second will. A legal clause. It's notarized. It's binding. If Andrew ever insults you, lays a hand on you, or tries to kick you out of this house, you'll have the power to take it all back. He'll lose everything, every penny, every right to this home." My hands trembled as I took in his words. "I didn't want it to come to this," he said softly. "But I needed to know that, even after I'm gone, you'd have some control. Some justice." Tears filled my eyes. I leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking. "I hope I never have to use it." He gave me the smallest smile. "Me too." He died 5 days later. The funeral was quiet and cold. Nothing fancy, just a few old friends and former co-workers. Andrew barely said a word. His wife sobbed the loudest, even though she'd only known him 10 years. I didn't say anything. I just held on to the folded flag they gave me and the last photo we ever took together. And in my coat pocket, I held that sealed envelope close. The very next morning, I went to the bank. The woman at the front desk recognized me. Her name tag said Melinda. "Safe deposit box?" she asked with a kind smile. I nodded. "Box 221, under Eileen Carter." She checked my ID, handed me the key, and walked me to a private room. I opened the box and carefully placed the letter inside, along with the second will, a USB stick with copies of all our mortgage documents and the original house deed. I labeled everything clearly, in case of emergency. Then I locked it up and left. I didn't want to think about it again. I didn't want to believe that day would ever come. But now it had. 3 days after Andrew slapped me, I went back to the bank. Melinda wasn't working that day. A new young clerk helped me, barely 20 by the looks of him, but he was kind and respectful. "Need access?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Box 221. He led me to the same private room. I unlocked the box and paused for a moment. This time, my hands didn't shake. I pulled out the letter first. The paper was starting to yellow a little at the edges, but my husband's handwriting was still clear, still steady, still his. "To my dearest Eileen," it began. I read it again, even though I knew every word by heart. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And if you're reading this because Andrew did what I prayed he never would, then I'm sorry. But you need to know something. You are not powerless. You are not invisible. This house was as much yours as it was mine. Your hands built it. Your sacrifices paid for it. And no one, not even our son, has the right to take that away." I could feel a lump rising in my throat. There's a clause in the supplemental will. You know the one. Use it if you must. Don't let guilt keep you silent. You've spent a lifetime holding this family together. Let this be the moment you stop carrying that weight alone. It was dated October 14th, 2020, just weeks before his final hospital stay. His signature was firm, like he had put every last bit of strength into writing it. Below the letter, the second will confirmed everything. It named me as the primary custodian of the estate. And it included one very clear, unshakable clause in the event that my son, Andrew Carter, verbally or physically abuses my wife, Eileen Carter, or attempts to evict her from the family home. All inheritance rights under this will shall be null and void. The estate shall then transfer to. The trust was in my name now, mine alone. Everything had been signed, witnessed, and notarized, legally solid. I sat there for a while in the quiet of the bank's vault room, breathing slowly, letting it all sink in. I never wanted this kind of power, but they left me no choice. They underestimated me. Just because I'd stayed quiet didn't mean I hadn't been paying attention. I carefully placed the documents back into the box, then grabbed the USB drive and tucked it into my purse. Later that day, I planned to send the files to the lawyer, along with something else, something I had saved for a moment just like this. A recording from the night he slapped me. His voice was clear as day on it. "This isn't your home anymore. Get out." That was all I needed. Proof. Purpose. My husband had always told me to be ready, so now I was. The next morning, I made my way back to the bank. The snow from last night had frozen into a sheet of ice, and the sidewalk was slick under my boots. But I walked with purpose, not rushing, not stumbling, just steady. I wasn't scared. I wasn't broken. I was done being quiet just to keep the peace. By 9:05 a.m., I was sitting across from a bank officer in a small glass-walled office. Her name tag said Jessica. She wore a burgundy blazer and had gentle eyes, but I noticed the spark of curiosity in her expression as she read my request. "You'd like to stop the automatic mortgage payments, Mrs. Carter?" "Yes," I said clearly. "And I'd also like to review the full loan file, originals if possible." Jessica hesitated. "We can make copies for you. Are you aware that this might affect—" "I'm the co-borrower," I cut in. "The loan is in both my late husband's name and mine. I have every right to stop payments. My name is on every page." She paused, typed something into her computer, then nodded. "You're right. And you're also listed as a co-owner on the property title." "I know," I said. "Please prepare the documents." She left the room and returned a few minutes later with a thick manila folder. My name was neatly typed on the tab. I smiled, a little when I saw it. 35 years worth of payments, statements, and renewal documents, all carefully kept, all mine now. I signed the form to cancel the payments. It took less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes to undo something they thought was permanent. Jessica handed me the folder. "Is there anything else I can help you with, Mrs. Carter?" "Yes," I said. "I'll be sending this to my lawyer later today. In the meantime, please, flag the account. No one is to restart payments or make any changes without my written permission." She nodded. "Of course. We'll lock it." As I stepped out of the bank, the wind tugged at my coat. I wrapped it tighter around myself, but inside, I felt warm, not angry, not vengeful, just steady, strong. I had been getting ready for this, even when I didn't know it. Back at the small apartment I was renting month to month, I opened my laptop and plugged in the USB. The files popped up right away. My husband had been careful. Everything was labeled by date, type, and legal reference. At the very bottom, I added one more file, the audio recording from that awful night. It was a habit I'd picked up after my husband's first stroke, recording important conversations, instructions from doctors, even grocery lists. That night, the recorder had been in my coat pocket. I was going to make a note about picking up a prescription. Instead, it caught everything: the sound of his voice, the slap, the words. "This isn't your home anymore. Get out." Clear, damning, unmistakable. I uploaded it to a secure folder and sent it to Megan Dale, the lawyer who had helped my husband write the extra section in his will. Subject: urgent. Activation of Clause 17BI attached everything. The recording, the will, the mortgage file. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mrs. Carter? Yes. This is Megan Dale. I got your email. I've reviewed everything. Her voice was calm and steady. First, I want to say, I'm sorry this happened to you. But more importantly, you've done everything exactly right. I didn't say a word. She went on. Clause 17B is valid. The audio confirms verbal abuse and an unlawful eviction. Based on your husband's will, your son loses all rights to the inheritance, effective immediately. Can you move forward with this now? I asked. Yes, she said. I'll file the notification today. We'll send a cease-claim letter to your son's attorney and freeze all estate distributions. Do you have a place to stay? For now, I said. We'll arrange a full review this week. But for now, just know this. You're not powerless. Anymore. I thanked her. And for the first time in a long while, I truly believed it. After I hung up the phone with Megan, I sat by the window in the little armchair at the motel. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet and clean. No cars honking, no raised voices, no icy silence at dinner filled with sighs and side-eyes. Just peace. Not the kind of silence that makes you feel invisible, the kind that makes you feel free. I thought about my husband, how he'd seen this coming. He hadn't been afraid of dying, not really. What scared him was what might happen to me afterward. Left behind with a son who had long forgotten how to show care. Over the years, I'd forgiven Andrew more times than I could count, for the missed birthdays, the mood swings, the white lies. I used to believe that's what mothers were supposed to do. That loving someone meant putting up with everything, no matter how much it hurt. But real love? It shouldn't mean disappearing just to keep the peace. I had done that for too long. The next day, Megan filed the papers. The court quickly issued a freeze on the estate. Andrew would be formally notified within 48 hours. At the same time, the bank processed my request to stop the mortgage payments. From now on, the system would block any attempts to start them again without my consent. In legal terms, I had become a wall, a firm, unmoving wall. Financially, emotionally, legally, one Andrew couldn't climb over, no matter how hard he tried. I didn't call him. I didn't warn him. I didn't explain a thing. I simply acted, quietly, precisely. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is remember every single thing they thought she'd forgotten. The first sign that they knew something was off came through someone else's phone. I was waiting at the pharmacy when a girl behind the counter, someone who used to babysit the neighbor's twins, pulled up a post. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently, "I didn't know you moved." "Out. Your daughter-in-law's been sharing pictures of the renovations." She held out her phone, and there it was. A photo of my old living room, once filled with music and dancing on our 25th anniversary, now cold and staged. Brand new flooring, white and gold curtains, a cream leather couch. The caption read, "Fresh start. Goodbye to the darkness. Hello to our forever home. Darkness." That's what she called me. I nodded, gave a polite smile, took my bag, and walked back to my small apartment. I didn't say a word. But inside, something shifted. Not anger, not heartbreak, just clarity, sharp and bitter. They really thought they'd won. That I had just slinked away like an old coat finally tossed out. Outdated, unneeded. They had no idea what was coming. The posts kept coming. Their new kitchen, their fancy mattress, a chandelier in the hallway. One picture showed Andrew hanging up a sign that read, "Love lives here." They were celebrating, showing off, hosting wine nights with meat and cheese boards laid out on the same dining table my husband built by hand. And through it all, not a single call, not one text, no thank you for the life I helped build. Not even a whisper of acknowledgement for the decades I gave to that home. But then, exactly 31 days after I stopped the payments, the letter went out. The bank didn't waste time. They mailed a formal notice to the house. Subject, default notice, Carter residence. It said that because I revoked the payment authorization and the loan was now unpaid, the mortgage was in default. If it wasn't fixed in 15 business days, the house would go into foreclosure. I didn't need to see their faces to picture the moment. I imagined them standing there, opening the envelope. At first, quiet confusion, then panic. A fast scan for any kind of mistake, a quick rise to anger. Then, finally, the truth settling in like a cold weight. They hadn't read the fine print. They'd never thought I could actually do anything. They thought I was just some old woman. All bark, no bite. But I wasn't the bark. I was the bite. I was the signature. The name next to the deed. And now, I was the reason everything they built was starting to fall apart. That evening, Andrew called me. His name lit up my phone for the first time in over a month. For a second, I thought about letting it ring, but I picked up. I wanted to hear it, just once. His voice was low and shaky. Not angry yet, just lost. Mom? I said nothing. I don't understand. We got this letter about the house, something about foreclosure. Did you do something to the payments? I waited 3 long seconds before answering. Yeah, there was a pause. Then his voice cracked. Why? Why would you do that? We're going to lose the house. I didn't reply. Mom, please, he said. His voice was breaking. Now, I could hear it. His breath catching, like someone realizing the ground was no longer beneath him. We didn't mean it. It was just, emotions were high after Dad's funeral. We weren't thinking, Andrew said, his voice cracking. No. That's what people always say when they want to undo a choice they made on purpose. We weren't thinking. It's just another way to pretend it didn't happen. Please, he whispered. We can fix this. Just tell the bank it was a mistake. We'll restart the payments. We can talk, figure something out. I closed my eyes. That same voice, the one now begging me, was the same voice that had told me to get out. The same voice that stayed silent while his wife erased every trace of my life from that house. Painting over memories with beige and smiling like it didn't mean anything. I can't, I said quietly. But it's your house too. No, I said, calm and steady. You told me it wasn't. Silence. He had nothing left to say. Didn't wait for more. I hit the red button and ended the call. Then, without hesitation, I blocked his number. That night, I sat by the window again, warm under a blanket, with a cup of chamomile tea in my hands. I listened to the soft hum of traffic outside. I didn't feel happy about hurting him, but I felt peace, real peace. The kind that comes from finally choosing yourself. They thought they had won, but they never even knew there were rules. The next day, I showed up late to the family meeting. On purpose. It was already in full swing when I walked into my sister-in-law's living room. Neutral ground, they'd called it. The table was set like we were at a casual tea party, not a reckoning. Coffee was poured, lemon cookies arranged on fancy plates, a little too perfect. Andrew sat at the head of the table, beside his wife. She wore a soft pink blazer and a smile that looked delicate, forced, like it would crack if anyone looked too closely. When I opened the door, every conversation stopped. I didn't apologize for being late. I didn't say hello. I didn't take off my coat or even shake the snow from my boots. I just walked straight in with my tote bag over one shoulder, no excuses, no explanations. I stopped at the center of the room and carefully laid out what I had brought, one by one. The original will, the updated will, a USB drive with the audio recording, a notarized copy of the mortgage agreement. I sat down across from Andrew. His eyes were wide. His wife's knuckles turned white where she gripped the edge of her chair. I folded my hands and looked toward Megan, my lawyer. She had arrived earlier, at my request. She stood now, calm and steady as ever. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice professional but clear. "I represent Mrs. Eileen Carter, widow of the late Mr. Thomas Carter. Today's meeting is to formally go over the legal updates regarding Mr. Carter's estate." Andrew already looked flustered. He raised his hand like a kid caught cheating on a test. "Wait, why now? I thought everything was all ready." Megan didn't flinch. "Please allow me to finish." He shut his mouth. She held up the updated will. "This document, signed and notarized in 2020, contains a clause, Clause 17B, that states, if the heir, Andrew Carter, engages in any verbal abuse, physical harm, or forces Mrs. Eileen Carter to leave the home, all inheritance rights will be revoked." A few gasps broke the silence. Someone whispered, "Eviction?" Megan nodded. "We have audio proof of Mr. Andrew Carter saying, 'This isn't your home anymore. Get out.' This took place within hours of Mr. Carter's funeral." Andrew jumped up, nearly knocking his chair over. "That was taken out of context." Megan didn't even blink. She pulled out a small speaker from her bag and pressed play. My son's voice filled the room, loud, clear, cold. "This isn't your home anymore. Get out." Then, a slap. Then silence. No one moved. The room went still. Eyes darted between Andrew and me. His face had gone pale. His wife looked like she'd swallowed her tongue. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The truth had already spoken. Megan paused the recording and looked around the room. As a result, under the terms of the will, Mr. Carter forfeits all claims to the estate. Full ownership of the assets, including the family home, are transferred to Mrs. Eileen Carter. She turned to me. "You have the right to enforce this completely or open negotiations. Legally, the choice is yours." I looked at the people around the table, the aunts and uncles who hadn't said a word when I was pushed out, the cousins who never checked in, the family who had treated me like a background character in my own story. Now they saw me. Now they listened. Andrew slowly sat down, his whole body trembling. He looked at me with watery eyes. "Mom, please," he said, barely more than a whisper. I didn't mean it. I was grieving. I was upset. "You know me. You know I wouldn't—" "You did," I said gently, cutting him off. My voice was steady, soft, but firm. "You did it in front of your wife, in front of your father's body. And you didn't stop there. You changed the locks. You posted photos of my kitchen online and called it your forever home." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You knew exactly what you were doing." His wife opened her mouth to speak, but Megan raised a hand. "This is not up for debate. The documents are in order. The law is clear." His eyes were red and watery. "I'm your son, and I was your mother," I replied, "but you treated me like I was just some guest in my own home." We both went quiet. I stood up, picked up my papers, and slid them back into my bag. Nobody stopped me. I walked to the door, my boots making soft clicks on the tile floor. I turned back just once. "I didn't come here to get even," I said. "I came to tell the truth. What you do with it now, that's on you." Then I left. I didn't need to slam the door. The silence behind me said enough. It was raining when they showed up. I heard a knock at the door, 3 soft taps. Then silence. A pause. Then another tap, like they weren't sure if they should knock again or just go. I opened the door slowly. Andrew was standing there in the hallway of my apartment building, soaking wet. Rain was dripping down from his shirt collar. His wife stood just behind him. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying, but no tears were falling now. He looked older than I remembered, like life had aged him faster than time should have. He wasn't wearing a coat. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. I didn't say anything. I didn't know where else to go," he said, stumbling over the words. "They sent the foreclosure notice. I tried to stop it. I really did. But they said I wasn't authorized. The payments had stopped. They said I didn't have any legal right." "You don't," I said, my voice flat. His face twisted in pain. He dropped to his knees right there on the old hallway carpet. "Please, Mom, I'm sorry. We're sorry." His wife didn't kneel, but she lowered her head and hugged her purse close like it was the only thing holding her together. For once, she didn't look like the strong one. She looked like someone facing the consequences of her choices. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "We both did. We let our pride get in the way. We thought we were doing the right thing. But we were cruel. We were wrong." I still didn't move. "Just, please, Mom, if you could talk to the bank, reinstate the mortgage. Let us take over the payments. We'll pay every cent. We'll make it right. You can move back home or not, whatever you want. Just don't let us lose the house." I opened the door wider. His eyes lit up a little, like he thought I was letting them in. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped past them, reached into my purse, and pulled out a folded document in a clear plastic sleeve. "This," I said, handing it to him, "is the deed transfer. As of yesterday, the house isn't mine anymore." He blinked. "What?" "I sold it," I said. "To who?" his wife asked, panic rising in her voice. "To the Elder Protection Foundation," I said. "They're turning it into a safe home for older women who've been pushed out of their lives. Women like me." Andrew opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "You sold it?" he whispered. I nodded. "Cash buyer. Immediate transfer. It's done." His hands shook as he held the paper. "Why would you do that? That was our home." "No," I said gently. "It was never yours. It was built by me and your father. Paid for with my long hours, my second jobs, my patience, and my silence. You lived in it. You used it, but it wasn't yours." His wife finally spoke. "That was a mistake, okay? We got caught up. We thought you'd understand. You could have talked to us." "I tried," I said. "Every dinner where I was ignored. Every time you roll." He sat there with his face buried in his hands. "I'm going to lose everything," he said. I leaned forward just a little and said softly, "You already did." He looked up at me. "D your eyes when I spoke. Every time you walked past me like I was invisible." I tried. Andrew looked down. His shoulders shook with quiet sobs. "I don't want your apology," I said. "I want you to understand." "I do," he said through his tears. "I understand now. I was wrong." I looked at him, my son, the little boy who used to draw me cards with crayons, who used to hold my hand crossing the street, who used to run into my arms after school. That boy was gone. In his place was a man who had forgotten, but now he was kneeling. And me? I had already gotten up. "I forgive you," I said, "but I'm not going to fix this." He nodded, slowly, like every movement hurt. As I turned to go back inside, I added one last thing. I didn't keep the house. I kept my peace. Then, I closed the door, and for the first time in years, I locked it. Not to shut people out, but to let peace in. I used part of the sale money to buy a small cabin by a lake in Alaska. Nothing fancy, no hot tub, no marble counters, nothing Instagram-worthy. Just 4 strong walls, a wood stove, and a view that made the silence feel like music. The first morning, I stood on the porch barefoot, holding a warm mug of coffee. I watched the mist rise off the lake. It was so quiet, I could hear myself. Breathe. No arguments, no doors slamming, no one asking me to explain why I deserved to be heard. Just me, the trees, the sky stretching wide and peaceful above me. and for the first time in decades, I slept through the night. No nightmares, no shouting voices in my dreams, just rest. I unpacked slowly, one box at a time. I didn't bring much, just the things that mattered. Like a photo of my husband. That was enough. I sat in the garden, smiling, wrapped in an old, crocheted blanket I had made during his chemo days. It still smelled like sunshine and yarn. Nearby, I had a folder stuffed full of papers, bits and pieces of my life, and a small black digital recorder. That recorder had captured the moment they tried to erase me. Now it was going to help me take my story back. I set my laptop on a small desk by the window, plugged in the recorder, and hit play. His voice filled the quiet room. But this time, I didn't flinch. I'd lived through worse. I opened a blank document and started typing. I wrote about the hydrangeas we planted back in '89, about the winter the roof caved in from too much snow, and how we fixed it together using borrowed ladders and whispered prayers. I wrote about the day Andrew was born, about the first time. He called me Mom. I didn't write to blame anyone. I wrote to remember, to give myself back the years I had spent tucking my feelings away for the sake of keeping the peace. That evening, I sent my first audio story to Grandma True Stories. Just a real story. My story. It wasn't fancy or dramatic, just a voice that had waited too long to be heard. In the recording I said, "These days, getting older can make you feel invisible. But growing older isn't about fading away, it's about gathering strength. Silence doesn't mean giving up, it means getting ready. I didn't lose a house. I found a whole new world. So if you're listening, and you've ever been pushed out of the life you helped build, just know this. You are not alone, and you are not finished." I didn't think anyone would listen, but they did. Comments started coming in, from other women, other grandmothers, from quiet rooms just like mine. I thought I was the only one. "You said exactly what I've been feeling for years. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." And just like that, the silence started to change. It turned into something powerful. A choir, a community, a quiet army of women who didn't have to prove anything to anyone anymore, but still had so much to say. I still live in that little cabin. I still wake with the sunrise, sip my coffee slowly, and let the peace settle into my bones. Sometimes I think of Andrew, of the house, of what could have been. But then I remind myself, what I lost was made of bricks and paint. What I gained was made of truth. And truth? It doesn't fall apart, it doesn't fade, it waits. And when it finally speaks, it doesn't need to shout. It just keeps going. So if you've ever been hurt by the people who were supposed to protect you, just remember this. Silence is not weakness. Subscribe to Her Yesterday by Emma, where the forgotten find their voices again.